Welcome to all of our attendees this morning to another Tuesday morning Toolbox Talk. We just want to give you that reminder about the event happening on the 28th of July, 2022. That is the Plumbing Industry Awards. And our OPSE is inviting you to the Royal Elephant Hotel and Conference Center at 6 o'clock on the 28th of July. So if you haven't already got your tickets, or if you haven't booked it at this stage, please contact marketing@iopsa.org. Then for the tips to continually prevent COVID-19, we know you're probably tired of hearing it, and we understand it as well. In fact, we've got a bit of a safety saying for you this morning, even if you are getting tired of hearing it. But the tips to continually prevent COVID-19 also help you to prevent other illnesses. So regularly washing your hands with soap and water. If this is not available, using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Adhere to your social distancing measures, as well as avoiding close contact with people who are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or tissue and throw this into the bin, and then clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. And if you still can, please get yourself vaccinated. Now, just as a reminder, we do have the FM Expo, the OSH Expo, the Securex Expo, as well as the Fire Expo starting today. So if you haven't had a chance to book yourself into that, or if you haven't managed to get your free tickets, please go online and see if you can't get that. We'd love to see you there. Any of you that are going to be coming out, we'd also like to see you then for the seminar happening this afternoon about mandatories. We're taking a look at section 37.1 and 0.2 and how this acts on omissions from employees and mandatories could still affect you as an employer. So if you haven't had a chance, please get in touch with me and I can tell you how to meet us there. The last Toolbox Talk for today is on ceilings. Again, we are looking at working at heights, but we are going to touch base on a few other areas where ceilings also pose a huge risk to our plumbers. But the safety thought for this week: working safely may get old, but those who do so or who practice it will also get old. So if you are getting tired of hearing about it, please remember, working safely may get old, but so do those who practice it. And that's really what we want. Constantly looking at our safety aspect, let it become a behavior, let it become something that is part of your company, so that in future we all can, take that retirement that we are looking forward to. I know that it's also going to cost a bit of money. So obviously you need to get more work, and more work means you need to start preparing for safety. Now, clients are starting to get a little bit more difficult when it comes to your safety files. And we also appreciate how difficult it is out there. And that is why, as IOPSA, as well as OHSS, we've tried to bring you as many discounts as possible, even free things, free training, free safety files, free templates, to be able to make it a lot easier for you. So please take advantage of those items that we have for you. Now, when it comes to ceilings, there are quite a bit of hazards that you might be exposed to. And as you see there, it could be unsafe access, heights, electricity, confined spaces, even your toxic exposure or biological exposure to rodents, feces, reptiles, and snakes inside ceilings, high temperatures or even low temperatures during the time or this current months that we are heading into winter, sharp objects in roof trusses or ceiling joints, the location of water pipes or electrical wiring. All of these pose a potential threat to you as a plumber. Now, how do we mitigate those dangers? How do we make them less? The only way to do that is by doing a proper inspection. You see, what you need to first do is get into the area and see what are the risks that are possibly going to expose you to danger, which means you need to set up safe access. So before you can even start working, you need to have safe access. And that is why it's one of the biggest risks that we have, because safe access is used not just for work, but the inspection, for auditing, and most importantly, for going up to see if there is any potential risks for you and your employees. Now, as you can see in this picture, and we mentioned this earlier in the month, when ladders are set up, if they are not set up correctly, you're going to have the risk of dangling your feet down, trying to find where the ladder is. Now, speaking to a few, actually it wasn't a plumber, it was an electrician. He said, but it's fine. I've got two guys at the bottom that hold the ladder for me. And I said, okay, that makes the ladder stable, but you are still not stable. And he said, well, it's worked all these years. And that's an excuse or an explanation that I hear very, very often. It's worked all these years. And oftentimes we look at it and say, yes, it seems that you've been safe or been lucky up to now. But remember, incidents and accidents can happen at any time. And when they do, they are often serious consequences, especially when we take chances like this. Your reaction time gets slower as we've been doing it for longer because you have more confidence in yourself. You lack the respect for the environment around you. And that is because you've been doing it so long, nothing has gone wrong. You don't necessarily see the danger. And so the first step to mitigating the danger is changing our attitude towards safety. Safety is necessary. And many of you will probably agree with me. In fact, most of you will agree with me. The problem comes in is how safety is being implemented on our sites by some of our client safety officers. They can be rude, aggressive, and almost showing that health and safety is having a God complex on site. That if you do anything wrong, we'll attack your safety file and make sure you get thrown off site. And we understand that we've met with people like this, we've worked on sites like this. The best thing you can do is not to get upset. Just look at the principle of it. What are they trying to achieve? Well, regardless of their attitude, how they speak to you, what they want from you, the end result is the exact same thing that you want. You want to be safe on site. You want to be able to go home without injury or illness. And so you essentially working toward the same goal, but just in a manner that you wouldn't really want to work on. You've got a few sites that you love working with, a few safety officers that are really great to you. In fact, when you've had issues on site and there's something wrong with a safety file, they sit you down and they show you what's wrong. And then they help you to put it into place because maybe it's a document that's not that serious and it's not a huge impact, but it's something that you need to have. And so they assist you with it, maybe even giving you a template and helping you to fill it out. Now, why do you have some officers like that? Well, it's because we understand you are not safety officers. You are plumbers. And if I needed to do plumbing at home, I would call a specialist. Yes, I'd probably try and fix it myself until I've messed it up and flooded half my wife's kitchen. And then I would need to call someone out who actually knows what's going on. But when you get to site, I'm not going to tell you how to do your plumbing. You see, you're going to explain to me how it's being done because you are the professional. And the opposite is true as well. You see, we can't tell the safety officers how safety must be done. They are the professionals. Sometimes they take it too far. Sometimes they're unreasonable. But the end result is that they want to keep you safe. So how do you work along with it? Well, you can work along with it by doing your part, making sure that you've mitigated the danger of any type of risk that you are going to face. And when it comes to ceilings, the very first step is getting into the ceiling. So safe access is a huge must. Now, safe access means, and you can see it there on the picture on the left-hand side, the ladder must extend past the ceiling boards rather, so that you can actually get into that surface safely with both hands still on the ladder, being able to hold onto something else before climbing off of the ladder. Stark contrast in this picture and the picture before, where the person is dangling out of the ceiling. So the ladder setup must allow for one person to climb the ladder and step off into the ceiling, not try and still climb into the ceiling. The ladder is not damaging any ceiling boards or the surrounding areas. The plumber can have 3 points of contact, 2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand while reaching for another point. The ladder is positioned at an angle that is safe and creates a stable platform. That is our 75 degrees or our 4-to-1 ratio that we've mentioned. An additional employee can be stationed below and hold the ladder in place to create more support. So this is in addition to a safe access. So having 2 people holding the ladder is not safe access. Having a person holding it is an addition to safe access. And then never carry anything in your hands while climbing up or down that ladder. Rather have a rope tie whatever you need to that rope, climb in first. You can have the rope strapped to your waist as you're climbing up, and then make sure there's a lot of slack. So by the time you get into the ceiling, you can then pull up what tools and equipment you need. Now, we do know that sometimes, and we've seen it very often, two people are climbing a ladder while carrying something through into the ceiling. We see it very often, and I'm sure you've seen it. Hopefully you haven't done it yourself. If you have, maybe you need to readjust your thinking on how that work needs to take place again later on. It may just mean that you need to have proper planning. Now, also when it comes to planning, you also want to have proper lighting, because if you cannot see it, then you cannot improve it. So when there is a risk or any type of hazard in a ceiling, and there is not correct lighting up there, then you are not going to be able to see whether that risk or hazard that you're exposed to can be mitigated properly. You will not be able to improve the situation up there. Insufficient lighting when working inside a ceiling is a major cause of injuries as well as poor installations. Now, none of us want to ever be commented on or told to somebody else, even if it's by word of mouth, through friends, don't use that plumber. Their quality is not good. None of us ever want to have that type of reputation. In fact, we want the opposite to be said of us. We want word of mouth from friends and relatives of the person that we are assisting saying, you know what, if you ever have plumbing issues, this is the person to call, because not only were they clean, the environment around was clean, it was a simple exercise, they had everything set up correctly. They might not even know about the safety aspect of it, but everything worked perfectly and it was a quality installation. They probably don't even look in the ceiling. And so there's a lot we could get away with, but that's not the attitude we should have. We should know 100% that our quality is there, that our safety is there, even though it is unseen. So what is the right type of light for you? Are you going to get extension leads in there and put up lights? Are you going to get torches with batteries? What is the best light for you? Now, it comes down to not just the light in the ceiling, it comes down to costing, price. It comes down to how bulky they are, how heavy they are, where they're going to be placed inside the ceiling. There's a lot of factors that will obviously move in the direction of budget as well as time frame. But then another thing that I want you to consider on top of that is, will you create any additional risks while you are there? You see, once you climb into that environment, you are exposed to the environment's hazards. So that could be dust, it could be rodents, it could be electric cables laying around. It could be anything that ceiling environment exposes you to. But adding your tools and equipment exposes you to additional risks. And so the tool that you're working with has a risk. The equipment you're working with has a risk. You yourself are a risk in that environment because of a behavior-based safety program that is sometimes lacking in a company. So the person themselves could also be a risk. But when we bring lighting inside there, how is it being set up? Is it in the way? Is it obstructing the exit? Is it perhaps obstructing the way we walk? Do we have to climb over leads in order to miss the lighting to get to the correct area? All of this means, again, proper planning, doing an inspection. And if you've been in hundreds of ceilings and you know pretty much 80% of what's going to be in a ceiling, maybe 95%, because there's only a 5% difference between some ceilings, well, then you've already got the experience. But why not share that experience? Why not tell us what you are experiencing in it so that we can take that content and that information and design a more accurate form of ceiling training for those who are new to plumbing, for those who are just starting out, for perhaps new companies that aren't quite sure what they are going to experience in there. By sharing what you have found, we can then maybe try and come up with some solutions. Now, the most important thing for me in getting that information from you is that I can see if I can't design some sort of documentation, safe working procedures, risk assessments, or even registers and checklists to see what you need to look for when climbing into those ceilings. And this is the type of documentation that we want to get out to you as member plumbers. Now, we mentioned earlier dust generation. Depending on what you are going to be doing in that ceiling, you are either going to have dust accumulation from before, you haven't even touched that area, but there's already dust in the ceiling. Now, that dust could be made up of bird feathers and droppings. It could be made up of rodent feathers and droppings. It could be made up of bat droppings. There's so many things inside that ceiling that could be in and out there at any given time that will leave behind particles and substances turning into dust over time. And you will have that exposure of breathing this in when you get up there. But if your scope of work says that you need to drill or grind while you're up there, well, then you are creating an additional dust generation hazard. And so you might find difficulty breathing. You will have an unobstructed view. You might even be exposed to biological hazards, as we mentioned, all of those droppings and skin that will eventually fall off from all these animals that are inside that roof or inside that ceiling. And this is what you are exposing your lungs to. And so sometimes a normal dust mask is not going to cut it. So again, as a reminder, do your inspection first, get all the information so that you can protect yourself and others. And this means that you will have adequate procedures in place to know exactly what is needed when you are working inside a ceiling. Now, we just want to stop and move off topic for a second. We've spoken about all this information in ceilings. And so perhaps you're going to be doing plumbing inside ceilings, piping. Perhaps you're going to be installing geysers inside ceilings, or you're just going to go up and have a look at the actual geyser that's in there and maybe change a thermostat or a valve or add something onto it. Perhaps you're just going into there, that ceiling just to audit it, to give a COC on behalf of that installation. The current risks that a plumber faces working in there will be faced by any person, whether you're doing an inspection or whether you're doing an audit. So the same safety measures must be taken by all persons, regardless of whether you're working in that area or just inspecting that area. Now, this is a very important thing because most plumbers that just go to inspect feel that they're not performing any work, so there's no danger. Well, the dust is still there, whether you're working in it or not. You see, there's still poor lighting, whether you're working in it or not. You will still be exposed to unsafe access if you don't have that, whether you were climbing up to work or whether you were climbing up to inspect. So the principles of safety, ensuring that everything is done correctly, from inspection to work to audit to COC, all has the same impact on a person. And the same safety measures still need to be in place. And by extension, this can be to any scope of work, whether it's in a ceiling, whether it's in a confined space, whether you're working inside tanks, whether you're cleaning out tanks, or whether you're in a borehole, whether you're working in excavation. Even if you're in a normal office area, similar risks and hazards could expose you to dangers. And again, it's regardless whether you're doing the inspection or doing the physical work. And so why am I actually mentioning this? Well, it's because I'm on site with quite a few plumbers. I'm on site with a lot of teams. And when I'm on site with a team, myself and the team adhere to all the safety measures. And then the manager arrives, and the manager has pluckies on. He doesn't have proper safety boots on. Fine, he doesn't have to have his overalls on. He's got denims and a smart shirt, but he refuses to wear PPE. He refuses to climb the ladder in a safe manner. In fact, I say you are not allowed to climb that ladder at all. I'm one of those safety officers that, yes, I actually do want you to be safe, but you're leading by example. So if you are one of those managers that is doing this, please just take a look at what example you are setting for the employees. Because if you're climbing up there without PPE, saying, well, I'm not doing any work, then what is the point of a risk assessment? What is the point of ensuring that your employees are safe from those exact same exposures that you are putting yourself into? So that was just a side note. It's something that we've seen on site, especially when it comes to safe access climbing in and out of confined spaces, as well as ceilings that we are often finding in a lot of the banks that we are going into. Legal documentation. Every hazard needs to be understood, and then the risk assessed according to, is it low, medium, or high? And then we implement control measures. So in other words, if you know what you you need to climb into a ceiling, you know that you need to have a safe ladder. So you know that you are going into a ceiling, you don't even have to inspect that site. The scope of work says that please come out to site and check a installation of plumbing inside a ceiling. Well, you already know it's a ceiling. You 100% know that you need safe access. But now, what else do you need? Well, you need adequate lighting inside it. You'll be exposed to dust. You'll be exposed to limited foot space. Where can you stand? Is it going to be low? Is it going to be cramped? Well, that means you need to perhaps have a site inspection. Now, you might be sitting there saying, but Chris, we can't charge for a site inspection and then additional to that, come and charge for the actual work to be done. Sometimes the inspection is done while the work is being done. Well, if that's the case, then work off experience, work off possibilities, work off what you know as common sense. Inside a ceiling, we are telling you, you have to have safe access. There is definitely going to be dust. There will definitely be a shortage of light inside most ceilings. Not everyone has good lighting inside their ceiling. It might be low. You are not going to be able to stand everywhere inside a ceiling. So you've got those basics. Plan for it now. So it's best practice to develop a safe operating procedure for the use of tools and equipment inside this area. Plan for a safe working procedure, how to enter that space, how to work inside that space, and how to get out of that space safely. Then each individual activity may have its own safe operating procedure. For instance, how to use a drill inside a ceiling, how to use a grinder inside a ceiling, because they might not have the same methodologies. You might have different ones. But remember, these are 1 or 2 page documents. It's not very difficult to have. What is difficult is working according to them, training your staff to know that they should have it in place. And then as supervisors and managers, owners of the business, are you adhering to the same safety standard that you are putting onto your employees? Well, remember, they're looking at you to set the example. So always ensure that you have the safest and least risky method used in your tasks, because it could potentially save your life. Now, finally, we look at PPE. PPE is the last form of control, and we understand that it is still mandatory and it must be chosen and worn correctly. So here's a few questions and a few things that you need to look out for when it comes to PPE. First of all, what do you need protection from? Once you know that, then research what type of PPE does the job well, while still allowing the PPE to last longer. I mean, these little PPF2 masks that we're wearing for COVID, they don't last very long. Any of you that have stubble after shaving will maybe agree with me that they pull apart pretty much after a day or two of wearing them. So that's why they're called disposable masks. It's because you need to have quite a lot of them, because you need to turn them around quite often. Now, many think, well, it's not being damaged too much, I'm going to keep it for an entire week. Well, remember, whatever you're breathing out or in is still on that mask, and you can't clean these things. That's why they recommended cloth masks. A little bit more expensive, but they last longer. They still need to be replaced, though. You cannot keep them forever. No matter how many times you wash them, it's going to start getting brittle. It's going to start wearing down. Depending on the type of cloth you're using, one might last a few months, one might last a year. Who knows? We don't know until you actually have identified or researched that PPE. Then get more than one quote. Don't get one quote and then say it's too expensive and move on. Get additional quotes if you can. Research the PPE that is on the quote. So when they're telling you this is the quote for this type of PPE, go online, take a look. Sometimes the sites or the manufacturer sites will have reviews on their PPE. And then we can see if we've been quoted on the correct type of PPE. Then when we've got all of this, we've got our PPE, we know exactly what we need, amend your risk assessment. Make sure your risk assessment is specific to the PPE that you are going to be using as a control measure. Train your staff, not just how to use it, but how to care for it and how to dispose of it if needed. Provide inspections, registers, checklists for that PPE so that staff continually have a safety mindset when it comes to PPE. Now, you might say, well, staff don't look after it. Well, staff, employees, I'm speaking to you when I say this. PPE protects you. It's called personal protective equipment. So please look after it. Not only is it expensive to, change PPE for an entire team, it's going to cost the company money, which means the company doesn't make as much. Now, we understand that you're not making that money, but you are also not spending that money on PPE. So please look after it because it is going to protect you when you need it. So we want to say thank you very much for joining us for this Toolbox Talk this morning. As a reminder, working safely may get old, but so do those who practice it. Looking at next month's Toolbox Talks, we're going to be looking at the fall protection plan because we've looked at most areas of working at heights now. So we want to take a look at the planning for fall protection. Then we're going to go into safe working procedures, safe operating procedures. And we want to give you some templates, as well as templates on daily safe task instructions and planned task observations, because both of those are continuous based risk assessments. And then finally, we're going to end off with risk assessment. What is it and why is it so important? We're also going to have a training video for you that is included in Prime. It's a little bit of an extra project for you on continuous based risk assessments, as well as issue based risk assessments with a template and a training session for you. Again, this is all free to our OPSA members in an effort to get you as compliant as possible. Just once again, a very big thank you to our attendees for taking the time out this morning and for all the emails that we have received in support of these Toolbox Talks, as well as those of you who've invited us to your site to come and assist you with your safety. We really do appreciate that, and we look forward to a continual relationship of how we can assist you in the industry.